Okay, so we'll bring the order, meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll begin with roll call. Bowman here, Laporte.
Here.
Patterson.
Here.
Frazier.
Here.
Adi.
Here.
Rush.
Here.
Honey.
Here.
Okay. Moving on, approve the agenda. We want to add things to it.
Yeah, Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the addition in the language on item G to include "and the amended budget through Q3," and also the additions of agenda item I, which would read, consider approval of the employment agreement for Ronald Tabor as the Sumpter Township Department of Public Works Director. Agenda item J is approving the minutes of the March 11th special board meeting at 5 p.m. Agenda item K would be approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of March 11th at 6 p.m. And agenda item L would be consider approval of the final payout of the benefits bank time for Kevin Scott in the amount of $2,659.20.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carried. Okay, we have a presentation.
Yes, sir. If I may, thank you. Mr. John Johnson is here with us from Acrisure, and he's going to give a view, if you will, and an explanation on our public entity insurance that is on the agenda as well, and has an April 1 suspense date for new policy. How was that? Good? All right.
Good evening, Board. Good to see you all. John Johnson with Acrisure Insurance. I hope everyone has a copy of the proposal that I had brought out to the last meeting, and I would like to start off by apologizing. There was some errors in the schedules that were included in the proposals that you'll see. So if you've had a chance to flip through that, I'm sure you had noticed that. Looks like we had pulled a wrong list of properties and vehicles. So hopefully I'll be able to go through that, and then we will get a amended proposal sent to you first thing tomorrow morning. So, but yes, the current township property and liability insurance has a renewal date of April 1st, 2025. For those of you that aren't familiar with the Michigan Township Participating Plan, or the PAR plan, Sumpter Township has been a member of this program for many years now. They are the servicing provider for your program, which is underwritten by TMHCC, Tokyo Marine Houston Casualty Company, which again has been the case for a long time. I wanted to highlight just some of the member benefits before we get into the coverage portion of the quote. I always like to start with these just to make sure you're aware of these member benefits and hopefully taking advantage of some of them, if not all of them, that you might have a need for. So 2 pages in, we have just a brief overview of the risk control, the risk reduction grant. And I know we've talked about this in previous meetings. As a township, I believe you've been awarded this grant twice in the past for a total of $10,000 in reimbursement funds. And just a quick overview or refresher of this grant program. It is a risk reduction grant, meaning it is intended for purchases that would lower the township's overall liability risk, whether it be security systems, security cameras, dash cameras, things like that, signage around your facilities, even fencing, things like that. The grant has 2 cycles throughout the year, once in the spring and once in the fall. We are currently just getting through what they call their spring cycle, although it ended before actual spring. So the next available cycle will be in the fall. And the The nuts and bolts of this grant have not changed over the last few years. You can still receive up to $5,000. Certain items have a different maximum that you can have reimbursement for, things like generators and so on. And all of the additional information on how to apply for this grant, timing of when you can apply and all of that is on the PAR Plan's website, which I think we have noted in here, which is theparplan.com. So I believe that's just those 2 pages. Some of the other member benefit programs that aren't included in the proposal that I wanted to highlight, though, was the water sensor program. I'm not sure if the township has signed up for that program yet, but essentially the PAR Plan has partnered with a company that sells the water sensors that you can put throughout your facilities that would notify you if you were to have a leak, essentially. The idea behind it is the quicker you are notified of a leak, the quicker we can get the water off, the less damage that would occur. And so one of the member benefits now is that townships can apply for that program. The units themselves are going to be free of charge, and then the service to monitor those units is also free of charge. Basically, the way it works is you apply, again, on the PAR Plan's website. You give them the addresses of the facilities that you would want to put the sensors in, and then they would kind of ask you a few questions about the specifics of the building to determine where would be the best place to put the sensors, how many you'd need, and so on and so forth. And then generally you have one or a few individuals that are tied to those sensors. So again, if they do go off, generally you're going to be notified via email or even by your cell phone about the leak, just in case it's something that occurs when the building isn't staffed. So again, if you haven't enrolled in that program yet, I would encourage you to do so. And the units and service all is free of charge and available on the PAR Plan's website. And next is what the PAR Plan calls their scholarship program. So I think I had talked a little bit about this in the past, and it used to be tied to that risk reduction grant. Now what the PAR Plan has done is they have pulled out what they call their scholarship program out of the grant so that you aren't limited to applying for a quote-unquote scholarship during those 2 cycles. It's offered year-round now. And there are certain state certifications and designations that members can apply for either partial or full reimbursement for the cost of those certifications. There's some additional information on the website there as well. And if you have any questions or have any new hires or new employees that have interest in doing some additional certifications, you can always have them reach out to me as well, and I can coordinate with the representatives at the PAR Plan to see if we can get some additional funds to you that way. And then lastly, I believe I've mentioned this in the past as well, but HR Muni. So HR Muni is an additional free service portal, 800 number, an online system where members of the PAR Plan can use some HR services that are available to members in case you have any HR type questions or issues or concerns that come up that you'd like a second opinion on. So that link and portal is also on the website. So all of that, again, on theparplan.com. So just like to highlight those first. As far as the coverage portion of our document, I'll go to the middle of our proposal here, and you'll see our effective dates and, of course, our renewal date of April 1, 2025. And the different coverages for liabilities. So first, we have our comprehensive general liability. Again, no changes here, but you'll see your per occurrence limit with no aggregate, meaning you don't have a cap in any given policy term as far as general liability claims go. For general liability, no deductible, so no potential out of expense for those premises and operations coverage claims. Next, you'll see cyber liability. It does say no coverage, and the reason is because we have a cyber policy for the township with a different provider. And so you've had a policy through CFC Insurance for a number of years now, specific to those cyber claims, so those phishing schemes, those data breaches, things like that. So although it's not through this program, we do have the cyber policy elsewhere, which I believe are the last few pages in this proposal that you have. Liquor liability, which would also extend to special events liability and fireworks liability. Currently no coverage and no need for coverage there. I know there was a question that was brought up today about some upcoming events that the township is sponsoring, and a question of is there a need for additional coverage there. Essentially, if there is not what the carrier considers a high-risk event, meaning alcohol sales, fireworks display, then there is not a need for additional insurance. They would include normal township functions under your general liability section. So to my understanding, the few functions that were brought up and asked about, again, would not require any additional coverage. If you do have a function, though, that would have a fireworks display or a beer tent or something along those lines, we could place a special event liability policy specific for that event. I know years ago, I think we had, was it the Sumpter Festival? I'm not sure if that's happened in the last few years or not, but if that comes back, then we could place that special event policy, again, specific to that exposure. Wrongful acts liability, you'll see we have the same per occurrence limit for the board's coverage in this case, no aggregate there as well. We do have a deductible specific to wrongful acts liability, as well as the zoning sublimit there. There was no change there. I know a few years ago they had implemented this deductible specific to wrongful acts liability, as well as the law enforcement liability, in an attempt to keep our costs as low as we can keep them. And still offering, what they would consider a strong policy document. So wrongful acts liability, mentioned law enforcement liability, same per occurrence limit and no aggregate there. And then automobile liability, it's kind of snuck into the next page there, but we do have a bodily injury and property damage coverage limit for the automobile liability as well. As far as property goes, although our schedules in your proposal aren't accurate, we do have a TIV, a total insured value of just over $20 million, which would include all of the township-owned facilities as well as all of the contents. That will not include automobile coverage and does not include inland marine coverage, which is the mobile equipment, things like the turnout gear and so on and so forth. That will be covered under inland marine, which is our equipment coverage. I know over the last few years there have been some revaluations done by the carrier to make sure we have all of the facilities properly insured for replacement cost coverage. What we've seen, especially on the insurance side, is that inflation with materials as well as labor has driven building values. Especially when we're looking at claims. And so in an attempt to make sure we have those properly valued, the total insured value limit for all of your facilities now is just over $20 million. We do have a $2,500 deductible for any property claim as listed. On the next page, we have a list of property extensions. Now, many of these probably won't apply to your township. They are automatically rolled into the property section of the policy for every member of the program. And so, probably don't need golf greens coverage, but some of the additional extensions there may come into play depending on the specific claim. And then at the bottom of that page, we have automobile coverage. So again, although our schedules need to be amended, you'll see we have currently 39 vehicles on the township's automobile schedule. And it sounds like we have a new vehicle that will be getting added to the policy here shortly. The sooner you can get us the new make, model, and VIN and value of that vehicle, the quicker we can get you a certificate of insurance for that. It sounds like April 1st is the tentative date that you'll be taking possession of that vehicle. So just a reminder, if you can send us that information, we'll make sure we get that properly added to the auto schedule going forward. On the next page, we have the inland marine coverage, which I had mentioned is, again, the mobile equipment. Total inland marine of about $1.6 million. Pretty extensive schedule that we have on there of specifically scheduled items, and then we do have, there's some miscellaneous property and equipment on there as well. Generally, we send this out prior to renewal to make sure if there's any deletions or additions that need to be made, that we get those amended. And so assuming that there were changes submitted, those should be reflected in that figure of $1,620,000 for equipment. And then lastly, EDP coverage, which is the electronics coverage, some computers, printers, phones, fax machines, and so on and so forth. Just a blanket valuation there of $100,000. Finally, we have the crime coverage, which is related to township funds and finances. You'll see some different definitions there for things like forgery, alterations of funds, theft, mysterious disappearance. Employee dishonesty is kind of a bonding term. And then on top of the crime coverage, we do have a handful of position bonds specific to certain individuals on the board, treasurer, deputy treasurer, clerk, deputy clerk, and supervisor, which is a state statute. So anyone that's not bonded in those position bonds would fall under the faithful performance coverage or employee dishonesty coverage. So again, I want to apologize on the next few pages on those schedules being incorrect there. But on the premium summary page, you'll see our breakdown of all of those coverages that we just highlighted: general liability, employee benefits liability, wrongful acts, law enforcement, and then all the property coverage in there as well. As I had mentioned, we do have that cyber liability policy on the next few pages, which again is through CFC. And you'll see the different kind of coverages and definitions for potential claims that would be covered by that cyber program. So the total, not including the cyber, you'll see broken down there, the MTPP, Michigan Township Participating Plan premium listed there, as well as the cyber liability premium through CFC. And that about covers my review. Is there any additional questions that need to be brought up?
Sure. Mr. Johnson, just something to additionally check into, is just noticing, I don't know what page it is, but on the inland marine coverage, number 6, Parks and Rec, playscape equipment, we're going to be putting in a larger playscape down this spring in the next couple of months. So
Okay.
we'll keep you updated on that,
Okay,
so that
yep.
we're properly covered for it.
Yep. For inland marine coverage, generally the carrier's rule is any item valued over $10,000 should be specifically scheduled.
Right.
Any item under that threshold could be covered under the miscellaneous property and equipment, where we don't specifically have it spelled out. Some townships, just for documentation purposes, kind of list almost all the equipment they have, just so they have a better understanding. But assuming playground equipment is pretty expensive these days, I would assume we're going to be above that $10,000 amount. So if that is the case, we'll want to make sure we get that scheduled.
Keep up with you on it. Yep. Thank you.
Chair.
Go ahead, Matt.
On the replacement cost of the fire equipment, I know it says that it's agreed upon cost. I know we're getting ready to add a new vehicle. I'm just looking at that, should that be replacement cost, or how do we come up with agreed upon cost? Because obviously to replace it, you're talking $500,000 per vehicle or more.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how we did that, so that's why my question
Yeah,
is.
good question. So there have been some changes over the years on how the power plan is able to cover emergency vehicles. If you recall, years ago, I would probably say this might be 5+ years ago, we actually had a majority of the emergency vehicles covered at Travelers Insurance. The reason we had those vehicles insured elsewhere is because Travelers offered at the time guaranteed replacement coverage for emergency vehicles, meaning if you have a $1 million vehicle listed on your policy, you totaled it, and it costs $2 million to replace it, they're going to replace the vehicle. Travelers no longer offers that coverage. To my knowledge, no carrier offers guaranteed replacement coverage anymore. And so after that transition, we moved the emergency vehicles back to the PAR plan. At the time, they offered what I would call a traditional replacement cost valuation coverage for emergency vehicles, which is repair or replace with like, new, kind, and quality to the stated value. On top of that coverage, we had a 25% buffer, which is an endorsement on the policy. So in that example, $1 million policy, or $1 million coverage, if that was not adequate at the time, we had an additional 25% of that $1 million to get us some wiggle room. Since then, they have now started insuring emergency vehicles under what they call agreed value coverage. The verbiage within the policy, though, is very comparable to how replacement cost used to be stated. So it's repair or replace to the stated value with like, kind, and quality. So the verbiage is the same. I think they changed the title of how they insure it to clarify maybe more that if they can find a comparable replacement, it doesn't necessarily mean you'll receive a new replacement. They're looking at comparable to the stated value. So with agreed value, I think our focus now, though, is to make sure on our schedules that we have those more accurately valued so that if there is a total loss, we're not underinsured. If the intent is to ensure that for what it would cost to replace, we can make sure our valuations on that schedule are adequate to do so. They do still have the 25% buffer as well, although how that endorsement works is a little bit different in the past. In the past, the 25% was essentially free of charge. I think they charged you what the premium would be for that additional, let's say, $250,000. Now that endorsement does work different in the sense that there's a 25% buffer, but the expense to use that 25% is a third of whatever the additional coverage is. So again, with that kind of confusing example there, if we had a $250,000 need for additional coverage, the township would pay a third of that. So there is, that would almost act like a pretty high deductible now. So we hope that there's not a need to use that 25% because, that would require some pretty significant expense on the township's behalf, so.
I'm glad you said confusing. 'Cause I guess where I'm still going to is how did we come up with this number this year for the 879, and is it sufficient? Do we need to do a review of that? We're getting a new truck and look at that, and will that impact if this is now $1 million, or 1.5 with the new truck? I just want to make sure that, we've looked at that a little deeper.
So first thing I'll do is make sure we get the current schedules sent back out to you because they're not in this proposal, but we'll get that sent out. Generally, what we like to do at renewal is, about 90 days ago, we sent the renewal application to the township for your review of those schedules. And so I don't recall if we had amended any of the valuations at this renewal. But I know generally that's the time we like to look at the valuations to confirm we're both comfortable with where they're at.
Yeah.
If we need to make any additional amendments, we can do those at any time, though. So,
and I think part of that discussion was to make sure that on our end, we knew that we weren't just valuing it at what we think it's worth today. We need to understand what we would have to spend if the truck was, damaged or totaled and
Yeah.
had to redo it. So I
Yeah.
wanna make sure that on our end, we understood, how we needed to represent the values, so. Second question is, I know we talked about this last year on the cyber liability premium. Is there any value or potential credits for that because we are also enrolled in a Sensei program, which is, kind of reviews our cyber threats. In fact, we're getting ready to have a test performed on our system for
Okay.
cyber threats and things that we are subscribed to their service. And so I don't know if it's in here, it didn't say, but I just wanted to see if there was
Yeah.
some type of discount for us being part of that. As sometimes you get a discount because you have certain things, on your security system
Right,
that the
right.
security company likes to see.
Yeah.
And they give you additional discounts.
That's a good question. What I would want to do is look back to when we placed this policy initially to see if on that application there was a question about what service you use and what that entails. If we need to update the information that CFC has on file, we'll definitely do so. I'm not aware of any discount that they offer specifically for that, but if that changes the underwriting application, it's possible that information would need to be updated. So I will look back to the initial application and see what we had filled out, and if we need to amend that, I'll reach back out to the carrier and see if there is any credit there.
Yeah.
I do know, in addition to that test that sounds like you're gonna have done soon, CFC does comparable sample phishing schemes as well. And so I think this might have even been mentioned at the last meeting when I was here, that test was gonna occur. And so they do offer those tests as well if for some reason you'd like to do, multiple of them.
Right.
But yes, I'll look back to the initial application there and see what was filled out as far as who your servicing provider was at the time.
Yeah, it
And
seems
if-
like there would be something there, because obviously a community that was doing nothing to protect themselves, shouldn't, or you would think would have a higher premium
Right.
than a community that's doing something to
Yeah.
prevent it. So we're doing something to help prevent it, so we're hoping that'll work out in here a little better.
Yeah, and I think if I recall back to last year's meeting as well, there was a question, and I'm not sure if this was ever brought up to that provider, on, I think someone mentioned last year, is there even a need for this policy or not? And again, I think it goes hand in hand with those services. Obviously, that's gonna be the frontline defense, is having your system set up properly and having those tests run and things like that. This is kind of the second line defense. We do have different packages, though, that are available through CFC. So if we need to either increase or even decrease coverage, we have different packages as well. But as far as looking into that discount, I can do that
Yeah,
tomorrow.
appreciate that, thank you. Chair?
Thank you, Matt. Donnie, anything?
Mr. Chairman, if nobody else has just a couple quick clarifications, if I may.
Absolutely.
Mr. Johnson, how you doing?
Good.
Just a couple questions on the automobile, page 4, the coverage. So the PIP benefits is capped at $250. Is there any opportunity to have that unlimited, or would that be extremely expensive in light? Normally, those going from a cap to unlimited in light of those damages don't normally occur.
Right.
But this is for employees driving vehicles that have medical issues or whatever it is.
Yeah. So we do have the ability to go to $1 million or unlimited. It's generally not very costly to do so. I'll say historically, though, the reason the PAR plan defaults to that $250 is not necessarily because of cost, but more so because if an employee is injured in that accident, there's going to be work
You have
comp.
workers' comp coverage too, but I didn't know what the set-off claims would be, if there would be, something like that, so.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
understand it's, you can't double dip, but at the same time, that's where you get into those arguments. You got each insurance company pointing their finger at the other one. Well, that's a workers' comp. Well, the PIP benefits take precedent over, it's one of those things, so that's why I was just wondering if
Yeah.
that, opportunity was there. If
Yes,
it's-
it is.
Maybe next time we can take a look at it. I don't want to make it a big issue, but those are things that come up sometimes in other circumstances. And is the opportunity for the underinsured or uninsured, that's for the employee, driver of the township vehicle, gets in an accident with another driver that's at fault, they get the benefit of the underinsured, uninsured coverage up to 100,000?
Yes, assuming the at-fault party has no coverage or minimal
Right.
coverage, correct.
So under those circumstances too, there'd be a set-off as to workers' comp or whatever the
Yes.
case may be, however that would factor in. But that coverage is afforded to employees driving township vehicles during the course of business, or
Correct.
while they're working.
Yep, so PIP and underinsured all act similarly in the sense that, the primary is gonna be workers' comp if that accident occurs. These would be supplemental funds on top of potentially what workers' comp may not cover.
So if comp pays 70% of lost wages, the employee could have the benefit of making a claim for the differential between 70 and 100% based on the secondary insurance. Is that the way I would understand it?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, there's an opportunity here at the bottom of that says employee vehicle endorsement. So if an employee is using their own vehicle to engage in township business, is that the way I should read that?
Yes, yeah,
And something that we're talking about here occurs during that time. It's not to and from, or breaks, or whatever the case may be, but we actually engage in township business, because that question comes up a lot too.
So the employee vehicle endorsement is intended for out-of-pocket expenses in a collision incident when an employee is using their personal vehicle specific to the physical damage portion of the claim. So generally, that's gonna be their collision deductible. So again, you're in an accident in your personal vehicle while on township business. You have, potentially work comp if you're injured. You have, your personal PIP coverage and all of that through your personal auto insurance carrier. But this endorsement will provide the employee up to $1,000 for their, quote-unquote, out-of-pocket expense, which is most oftentimes the collision deductible.
So the employee vehicle endorsement is capped at 1,000? Okay. Last question. What's nose coverage?
You're testing me now.
I'm not trying to do that. I just looked at that and I have no
Yeah.
idea what that is.
Honestly, I would have to refer to the policy document to confirm what nose coverage was. It's been a while since that one's been brought up.
I've never seen it, but that's why I was curious. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Set.
Good? Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
thank you.
for your
Thank
time.
you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll move right along. Okay, discussion. Hennessy project, assessment Willow Road water main, Willow Road water main. You guys, have you had time to read this over, everybody?
No, I just got it today.
Okay. So you want me to go through and read it and then we can discuss it from there, or you want to
No, I
just
think I can
take?
catch up pretty quick if I know in general what's happening there and, what's going on. I just need to read this
Okay,
particular document.
anything else? Somebody want to discuss anything that's, have you had time to read it, Tim?
Yeah, I was in the meeting. If
Yeah,
you want, do you
I'm
want me to
just-
do it just a quick?
Summary of it, yeah. we can-
Yeah, the meeting that Mr. Bowman and I had with Hennessy and our DPW, everybody knows that section of the water main has been a pain. It's nickel and diming us to death. In fact, during the meeting, Mr. Bowman and I brought up a great question.
Right.
We wanted an estimate. We've got people that are very knowledgeable, the history of that water main, how many breaks have occurred. And depending on, the time of the year, is it on a weekend? There's other hidden costs. We don't even know all underlying costs of what these breaks are doing.
It's the cost of, involving our DPW workers.
Yeah,
taking away from
overtime and.
There's
and-
overtime, there's, somebody has to pay for that lost water if it breaks in the middle of the night. It's not
Gliwa,
discovered
yeah,
till
we're
the
still
next
paying
day.
for the water.
It goes on and on and on, It's wear and tear on our equipment, it's, costing us money every time it happens.
Yep, and Tony,
Sir.
I thought the DPW was gonna try and get a little bit better estimate on those, the fees, like say, over the last 5 years for that water main.
Well, we had spoken through the overall cost. You had soft dollars, which you're talking about, and then you had actual hard dollars. The repairs, depending on the complexity of the intrusion on the line or the break, ranged from $8,000 to $14,000 per occurrence.
That was just for the
Fixing it.
contractor
The
to come in and
contract,
fix it.
you got it, sir.
And
That's
no
not
underlying
including the
costs.
Loss of water, loss of,
That's right.
paying DPW, for what, and when they should be doing other things,
Sure.
the inconvenience to the residents.
Oh, yeah. Very much
It just
so.
goes on and on. I mean, that could add up to from $8,000 to $30,000 every time one breaks,
Certainly,
you know.
certainly.
Yeah, and I think it's real important for the board to know during that discussion, this was for the iron pipe section on Willow, from Sumpter to Haggerty. Well, we found out at the meeting that actually continues on, what was it, 1,300 feet?
1,700 feet past. Martinsville.
1,700 feet further, and then it converts to AC, okay? Makes no sense to leave that 1,700 feet in there. If you're gonna do it now, because it's just a matter of when. We'd have problems with that section too. But I guess what the supervisor's office wanted to do is just get this into the hands of the board. We gotta look down the road and figure out a way how we're gonna fund this thing if we decide to move forward on it.
That's what we need to have a discussion on, it needs to be done. So, I mean, we need to apply for grants, try to get grants, whether we have to hire a grant writer, or, we need to apply for grants, we need, it's going on and on and on. I mean, you're gonna have the infrastructure is very important to developing a township. It's something that's been haunting us for years, upon years upon years, and we need to find a way to do it, and soon.
Yeah, and I'll take it a step further, Tim. Purpose of government is the safety of the residents, and
Exactly.
water and our infrastructure is definitely a major part of that, along with our PD, FD, and what have you. I was hoping to have a number to include on this tonight, but unfortunately, the
Number as far as,
revenue sharing from the state, but our governor doesn't have that budget quite prepared yet, so that number is
talking about-
unknown, but we're estimating it should be a little over $1 million this
For the
year.
Now,
cannabis.
that would be revenue share to offset the cost of this.
Well, that's what, yeah, I mean,
repair.
that's just
Yeah.
something to consider, because in the past, that number was a lot lower.
Sure, sure. Overall engineering assessment is a total of 7,300 feet from Willow, just east of the Martinsville intersection on Willow. It goes beyond it about 1,600 feet. It's about 1.4 miles, and the overall assessment cost engineering is $3.33 million.
With a 10% contingency.
Yes, sir. With engineering charges and the construction, the actual construction cost.
right.
Sure.
Yep.
And this is, for residents that haven't heard this before, we went through this in 2021. I think we applied for a grant, $1.5 million at that point to replace part of that Willow Road water main. Of course, we got denied. They didn't award us the grant at that time. So this particular line has been on our radar for some time. But what's been on the other radar, the board's radar, and our 5-year plan is our infrastructure and coming up with a plan to start attacking these older water mains. We just had a report, I think October, Tony, and I'd ask if you would get that to the board. I think it was Hennessy that prepared the report, which is required by the state. I think we paid $20,000 for it to look at our water mains and the age and things. It's required for us to send that in every 5 years. We need to look at that, and as part of this, as we look at funding, because, the water's an enterprise fund, so we need to figure out how that fund can go out for bonds. I think we just paid off our water bonds that we had, and Tony, do you know how long those were, with those 35-year?
Yeah, 30 plus years.
Yeah, 30 or 35 years, we just paid those off, and like anything, now it's a cycle, and we're gonna have to get back into replacing certain areas that are 45 to 50 years old already. I think our water main that was on Rawsonville that we had to replace because of the ditch digging that went on was almost 50 years old, at that time.
It held up fine until the county got involved.
Yeah, it held up fine
So,
until the
I mean,
county got
We just
involved.
got killed when
Yeah.
they stuck their nose into
Yeah,
it. but-
so I think, obviously this particular project,
you,
we
Rob.
need to start, looking for grants and start, because this one has been a thorn in the side of common and regular breaks, but as the bigger picture that we know we have to start looking at is, and that 3 to 5 and 10 is, where do we need to start, replacing some of these water lines that are already 50 years old?
Well, I think this is the place to start, this
Yeah.
stretch of water main.
Yep.
My question is, if you just mentioned that we applied for grants for this once before and we were turned down, so, try again, but what do we do to solve the problem now?
Well, I think, part of what we have to do is find out what financing options we have to be able to, finance this through the enterprise fund, so that it is, maintained within that fund. If there's money in the general fund that can loan it to the enterprise fund till it has enough
That's what I'm trying to get at,
Yeah.
is if we have the money in the general fund that could be loaned to the enterprise fund to get the problem solved now, but it's still at the same time go out for grants and whatever else is available to pay for the project. It's just, it's costing us money every time we turn around.
Yeah,
If
I
we-
think that's part of the plan that we have to figure out is how do we wanna fund it? Do we wanna do a bond, and look for grants, or do we wanna get financing? It's things that we have to start, getting our finance director, who hopefully we'll have one, back on the payroll here soon, but, we need to understand where we can get the money, what the cost is gonna be, and how.
Do we need a
manage.
finance director to figure that out? We're quite a few of us are businessmen up here.
Well, we know what it's gonna cost, Tim.
Yeah.
That's
I
easy to
mean,
figure
I
out,
know.
but we gotta figure out where we can do municipality-wise, how we have to apply for bonds is different than going to a loan for your business.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yep, Chair?
But
Yeah, I would hope that our vision on this, the financing would be to have the least impact on our residents. We might have to get creative, again, grant writing, what have you, but that was the purpose of this discussion here, is to get everybody thinking and coming up with ideas. Back to you, Chair.
yeah, that's exactly right. And soon. It's not something that we can keep putting off.
I will, by end of the week, get the last published water reliability report sent out to the board. It was sent originally, but that's been a couple of years.
I thought we
And-
just did one, in August. I thought they were preparing a report for us in August. And I just
I'll
never
have
seen
to-
it come back.
I'll have to look.
Yeah.
I'll have to look.
Yeah,
But I'll
see,
get
it's-
that out to the board, and then we need to determine next logical steps.
So,
Sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
Chair, if I may, so I printed out an amount for our enterprise fund for the water, $2,634,253.56 to be exact. But, obviously, we can't deplete that fund fully, it needs to remain in, some needs to remain there for necessary repairs and other stuff, but that's how much is in our enterprise fund for that.
So we could, we could take money from that to,
Yeah, we could. We do,
okay.
yes, but we
And what was that
obviously,
number again, Mark?
2.6, just figure.
2.6
rough
million?
numbers, yeah. But again, too, like, this is
So-
something we need to consider with our finance as far as future emergency repairs and other stuff, what is appropriate.
So
proper
how
use.
much of that have we occurred in the last how much of that would we have spent in the last 3 years? I mean, we have $2 million, almost over $2.5 million. What have we paid out in the last 3 years for emergencies and stuff like that? I mean, how bad would it hurt to take money from that, I guess is what I'm.
I can't answer that question here. I don't have the general ledger in front of me to look through all the books and stuff. We can figure that out. But again, I mean, the whole point of me bringing that up is that whether we leave, like, 500,000, 600,000, 800,000 in there to manage that enterprise fund and the repairs that are gonna still come up in other locations, we still need to leave something
Yeah,
in
you
there.
couldn't deplete it, but.
Right,
if we
so
could-
that was all my point of bringing it up was.
We'll, Rob, apologize for jumping in here. We're gonna want to take a look at that because of the permitted portions and use out of the enterprise fund to take for that purpose.
Right.
Is it possible? I believe to some extent, just don't know the amount, and I do not know the effect and cause study for that, and to come up with the true investment dollars you have available in that enterprise fund. So, but we raise good point. If there are portions of that that could be utilized to match available funding, it is an avenue.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a very good avenue.
Look, there's a substantial headwind against grants when it comes to water lines, sewer lines, because everybody has those problems,
Right.
so.
That makes it less likely to get a grant, is that what you're
Well,
saying?
yeah, I mean, it's just tougher, but what I'm saying is you're probably looking at a bond issue, probably, to do this.
Yeah, I would agree. And,
Which requires a financial analysis to put the program together. I mean, we in the past, we used Starter Barge to help us put all that together. They're consultants as it relates to these things, and
could we outsource something like that to somebody that could
what do you mean
do
outsource?
the math for us?
The analysis?
The numbers are derived from the township.
Right.
I mean, so we have the raw material here, and it would take, like I said, in the past, we've used consultants that specialize in this. To your point, they're, I guess you call them outsourced. They would come in, they would analyze the numbers, they would see what the need is, they would figure out how and what, in what regard this whole thing would be put together. There's a lot of factors that go into it. It depends on the solvency of the whole and the security of the whole system and has a direct impact on your interest rate. So, I mean, there's a number of factors. It's very complicated, but it's very doable. I'm not suggesting that it's not. We did it 3 decades ago for the water line. So we can do this, but there's just restrictions that we just have to comply with, and there's consultants that have always provided us with good information, good direction, and good suggestions as to how we do it. Every bond issue in the past, when we've used these people, we've always gotten there. Sewer, water, all of that, so. And the other thing you have to remember is these things are issues that are popping up here, repair. One of these days, that whole line's gonna collapse because of the whole system, so there's not gonna be any more repairing.
Yeah.
then you're into a much longer type of situation, because
An
you gotta
emergency
deal with the
situation.
immediate problem, and
Right.
then install the new line, you know, so. This one needs attention, I think, if I can make that suggestion. I think you all know that, but it's clear based on what we know historically.
Yeah.
So to Tony's point, then if we could just put get some information going and report back and keep that on as maybe even an agenda item once a month, or whatever the case is, whatever you want to do, and keep bringing it back and keep it moving.
Yeah, and I think, you know, to my point of that plan and looking at our aged water system, if we're gonna go out for a bond, we might wanna look at, you know, doing the Willow and the next problem line that we have, because going out for a bond, we may wanna just do it once, you know, and not go out for a bond on every section that we have to get done.
I kind of agree and disagree. I mean, you know, we have a section that needs to be paid attention to. I don't want it to get lost in the wash, you know. I mean, you need to know about, like you said, what kind of shape all of them's in, but you need to pay attention to this particular one.
Right. No, I agree. I
Rather
just
than,
meant there's a
you know.
cost to going out for the bond, and if we're gonna go out for, you know, endure the bond cost one time to get several pieces of the puzzle, plus the one that we obviously know we need done, instead of enduring the bond cost of going out to have a third party do that for you. They don't do it for free.
Chair? Also too, I think in our analysis and future conversations, and just so the general public understands too, the iron sections are the ones that we're having the problems with. The AC, which is asbestos concrete, that stuff lasts forever.
Yeah.
Okay?
Ever and
It's
ever
just,
and ever.
we should be trying to identify where those sections of iron water line are at,
Yeah, just like
and
mine,
it'd be preemptive. We know where potential problems could pop up, because the AC is gonna, it's gonna be just fine.
Yep. Okay.
So if I could recommend, I mean, to get a better idea of what we're looking at, and I'm not aware of this, I'd like to see some kind of plot map with the age of the lines that are in the ground, so we understand what we're looking at.
We don't know that already.
We have that
We have that,
report.
we should have that paperwork here
So
somewhere.
that's just
And were they all installed at the same time? Were they, you know, I mean, what sections were done first? Let's get a better scope of what we're wanting to do. I mean, we know what we want fixed, right? But let's understand what we have and how much of it, and where it's problematic at.
Chair, I have a question. So is there like a list, like we know that's number one? Is there other places that we are having those kind of problems with, not as quite as much, that we know that they're next on the list? Do we have that?
There's other areas that are in difficulty.
Yeah, because what Matt's talking about is if we've got something like that and we know that's coming, probably smart to try to,
I think we need to talk to Mr. Crusland. He has an actual Bible for the last, I'm serious, he showed me when we had to break on Martinsville Road a few weeks back. Him and I were talking, he has the time of day that broke, how much it cost, who we hired. I mean, he has a Bible on every break for the last 30 years.
Well, there you go. That's what you need. If you're interested in that, that's what we need.
We're talking about knowing where steel is and where everything is. Mr. Crusland could fill you in on all that.
Well, that might be part of the report that Tony's gonna get to us with the assessment. I'm sure it's detailed down to that.
I mean, he has records. I said, damn, John. He said, yeah, I got date. I know exactly when it broke, how long it took to fix, what it cost to fix.
He could tell you the weather on that given day, honestly.
No, I'm serious, yeah.
So, very good. I'll get
He
the
tells you
water.
what time of year it's most likely to happen, you know? It's just crazy how he kept records for all those years.
Chair, I got one quick question.
No, take your time.
Mr. Burdick, you may know the answer, I'm not sure. Do you know roughly how many breaks on this line that we've had repaired in the last year? Just in the
Oh,
last year?
I don't know that. I do know that we've experienced over the past 10 years about 18
Yeah,
breaks
18 was
along
I'm just
that
saying in the
line.
last year, 4, 5, maybe?
I would say probably I'm gonna say 4. We had one prior to the actual, but it was so close
It's
it
a 4 or
impacted.
5 breaks,
Yeah.
yeah.
Two
And
since
these are
November.
not pressure breaks. By and large, these are permeations through the line
Yeah.
because of chemical contamination around it. And it's attacking those iron lines.
Ahmad
And
was
some of these
explaining.
lines are about the size, the hole, when
Yeah,
they
they're
find
not-
it, are about
yeah.
the size of a softball. So,
Yeah, they was explaining that, they're not cracks in the line, it's just, you know, they're holes in the line where the
Sure.
chemicals eat it and,
sure. It's kind of like rust through a car body, you know?
exactly. Okay.
Very good. We'll get to work.
All righty,
Thanks, sir.
thank you, Tony.
Public comment, I think. You're at public comment, I think. 4.
Yep.
Nobody signed up for public comment?
Nope.
Okay, we'll move on to minutes. A, approve the special board meeting minutes of March 4th, 2025.
Chair, if I could make a motion to approve the minutes for item A and B and also include J and K, which were the special board minutes and the other board minutes that were added. That's,
Support.
yeah, J and K to A and B, and
So
we'll do all
moved.
4 at one time.
Yeah, I'll support that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carried. Moving on, 6, approve warrants of $1,035,234.44.
So
So
moved
moved.
with a roll call vote?
Support?
Okay, Bowman? Yes. Report?
Yes,
Patterson?
Yes.
Frazier?
Yes.
Addie?
Yes.
Rush?
Yes.
Honey?
Yes.
Okay. Managers report.
Yes, sir. The report submitted with the board packet, I'd ask it be received and filed. I would like to add a couple of things. On the board table is a Wayne County proposal for a paving project. It is a 1-to-1 match up to $1 million. So if the township wants to invest $1 million in paving projects, the county will match that. It is application-based. It needs to be filled in, sent in, and that is the county's, by and large, response to a number of dirt roads within the county. They've received approximately $7 million for investment. We're looking at it. We will talk further on that.
That $7 million, I'm sorry, Tony, that $7 million is distributed over 9 townships?
Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
and The deadline for that application is April 11th,
April 11th, sir.
so we need to get on it.
and they were also gonna be looking at, the nature of the paving.
Correct.
The nature of it.
Yeah, I mean, the
reason-
use, the reasoning, they're gonna definitely nod towards public safety first.
Exactly. They've established priorities. These are all covered in the document that is on the table for you. I did get that to you, didn't I, Sammy? Thank you, Deputy.
So with this program, Tony, is it like, you know, been trying to get roads paved around here forever. Is it, are we gonna have to do a door-to-door knock and ask the residents if they want it? The last time I was told.
I'm not sure I can speak to it in that fast.
Well, you know, paved roads are gonna, taxes are gonna go up.
Oh, well, I can't speak to that. I don't know enough about it yet. I still have questions based on the information we've received. I'm still grappling with a 3.5-page application, so that we need to up to if we want to get it in by April 11th.
Yes.
So I wanted to make sure the board recognized that. Also, I would like to, in a future board meeting, please talk to reestablishing the Martinsville Cemetery Committee. We had several key members who are no longer available for that, and we don't want to lose the headwind that's been built over the past 18 months. And as we all agree, that all the upside will go away real quick if we don't pay attention to that. I'd also like to suggest we originally talked about Martinsville Cemetery being squarely placed in the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And I'd like to review that more as well. And we talked about this historically as we move forward beyond April 1, a budget finance committee that will meet on a quarterly basis to review experience on the budget, any amendments, help spread this out and get more input so that on a routine quarterly basis, we have the proper shareholders involved, and we can get input on a quarterly basis, not at a year end. That's the extent of my report, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Motion to accept the TM report?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carried. Water and sewer report, treasurer's report, Patterson?
Yes, Chair. So just briefly, just want to make a note. I've just asked to receive and file, if the board would do that, on the water report, but also just make a note to the public that all amounts that are due on February 29th and are still due on October 31st will roll onto the 2025 winter tax bill. That's it for the water report there too. And then on the treasurer's report, we had if you notice on the report that provided the board, that the PSU CD matured March 3rd. We just moved that into Michigan class. There's a little bit of a downer on there too, because we're reducing our investment interest from 5.7, I think is what the CD was, down to 4.5 now. So we're still gaining interest, but interest rates have dropped. So still continuing on that good effort. So anyway, that is the extent of the water and the treasurer's report.
Motion to support.
Yeah, motion to accept the water and sewer report and treasurer's report.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carried. Attorney's report.
If there aren't any questions, Mr. Supervisor, receive and file.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to receive and file the
Support.
attorney's report.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nays? Motion carried. Board response.
Chair, if I could. Just a reminder to the board, all employees and the general public, it's coming quick, April 5th, 9 a.m. for the Skywarn training at Fire Station 1, presented by me. Typically, depending on questions, it can go anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes. I guarantee you a roller coaster ride. It's very, very enlightening information and could very well save your life. Even if you have had the training, there's always new things in these PowerPoint presentations from the National Weather Service. So again, even if you've attended in the past, one, it's a refresher. Two, there's always new material. Look forward to seeing everybody there. Back to you, Chair.
Chair, and just remind us, 9 a.m., right, trustee?
9 a.m., correct. Thank you, Matt.
Perfect. Chair, I'd like to add to Township Manager Burdick's comment about the cemetery. I would like to see us kind of enlist our Parks and Rec until we decide, where it may last, to do a cleanup, a spring cleanup over there. I'd like to see us get that sponsor, get it advertised, to get in there and do a spring cleanup, especially before Memorial Day. We did a lot of work over there, and we want to make sure we continue to maintenance it so that all that good work isn't lost. And invite, when we reestablish our committee, to invite some people to get on that committee. I'm volunteering now to be on the committee. Karen and Scott and a couple of the other members did some fantastic work. We've seen a presentation here on not only the war veterans that are in there all the way back to the Civil War, but no, people of notoriety that are buried in there. And I'd like to make sure that that video that they put together ends up on our webpage, you know, for people to be able to go and,
Yeah.
you know, watch that, because it was pretty impressive, the amount of research and history that's in that video.
Thank you, Matt.
Chair, if I could do a quick follow-up on that, thank you for the reminder, trustee Adi, too. So, our former finance director and a deputy clerk, I spoke with Deputy Clerk Armidas, former Deputy Clerk Armidas, about maybe a month ago, and she said sometime in the next month and a half to 2 months that we at the township had ordered, I think it was like a war memorial type of a stone or something that needs to be set in there, and there was a passion project that they had, and then they said that they would love to come out, volunteer their time free of charge, and just come out to help complete anybody else that wanted to join in and help. So they said when they have it, when it's ready, when it's in, they'll come back and let the board know, so we can get approval to go ahead with that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Bart. If there's not anything else, we'll move on to new business. A, consider approval of the employment agreement for Ken Martin as Sumpter Township Manager.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carried.
Mr. Martin is here tonight, Mr. Bowman.
Welcome.
Welcome back, Mr.
Yeah,
Martin.
Welcome, Mr.
thanks for coming down.
Thank you. Thanks for the quick support and approval of the agenda there, of the agenda item. Thank you.
It's rare that we move that fast as in government.
Our condolences, Mr. Martin.
Okay, moving on. B, consider approval of the retirement notice and employment extension of Anthony Burdick.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carried. C, consider approval of the Assecure MTPP liability related insurance coverage effective April 1st, 2025, annual cost of $169,000.06.
So moved.
$169,000.
And then $6.00.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carries. Okay. D, consider approval of the YCUA sewer use ordinance revisions as prepared by the township attorney.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carried. E, consider approval of Sumpter Township Park and Recreation Easter celebration on April 19, 2025 at Graham Park.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carried. F, consider approval of Sumpter Township Park and Recreation Earth Day celebration and cleanup of Benody Sherwood Park from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on April 26, 2025.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carried. G, consider approval of the 2025-2026 Sumpter Township operating budget and add
The amended budget through
amended budget
Q3.
through the third quarter.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carried. H, consider approval to renew the annual fire department AD&D policy with preventive for $791 effective April 1st, 2025.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carried. Announcement.
Nope.
Oh, we got a bunch to add to it, don't we?
Agenda item I.
You got that, where we-
Agenda item
I
I is
and L.
consider approval of the employment agreement for Ronald Tabor as the Sumpter Township Department of Public Works Director.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carried.
Agenda item L, consider approval of the final payout of benefits bank time for Kevin Scott in the amount of $2,659.20.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carried. Announcements.
Yeah,
He wants to get out of here.
just a quick reminder, I know we just approved it, but the Easter egg hunt April 19th at Graham Park. So get the word out. I know we've sent some flyers out to some of the daycares around the community, the in-home daycares. I'm trying to gather up people to come out. Also, April 5th at 8 a.m. in Harper Woods, the hazardous waste cleanup day for Wayne County. So you can see our website for details on that. So it'll all be listed there, what you're allowed to bring to get rid of your hazardous wastes. It happens usually once a year, and it kind of rotates around. This year, it's in Harper Woods. So again, check the website. On April 5th, it's at 8 a.m. They start accepting things. 4 times a year? Oh, I'm sorry. 4 times a year.
Close enough.
Seems like it only happens once, though. Probably only one time you think about it, right? That's all the announcements I have. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
all in favor?
Aye.
Nay, motion carried.